On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, opening night is here, which means it's time for some bold predictions with our pal Joseph Casciaro of The Score, the second annual edition. We're sure not going to be wrong this year, right?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, October the 23rd. Happy opening day for your Toronto Raptors, everybody. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. Been covering the Raptors now, going on 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the bad website that sucks at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. You can join us in the glorious Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join. As always, a great community we got building around the show. And you can go support the Locked On Raptors newsletter. Link also in the description of the podcast. It's also free. And you get me in your inbox every single day. You get Katie Heindel 4 days a week as well. Josh Lloyd's fantasy tips. There's no downside to subscribing to the Locked On Raptors newsletter. It's the best email you'll get all freaking day. All right, on today's show, got a lot to get to. It's bold predictions time, and I'm very excited. We're going to run into three big-time bold predictions for the season in our second annual edition of the show with today's guest. But before we bring him in, we got to tell you, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Go and download the Game Time app. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Maybe you can get yourself some tickets to the opener against Cleveland tonight. With that, let's get to it. Let's bring in our guest, Joseph Casciaro from The Score, who started this grand tradition with me last year as we hopped on the day the season started to share some bold predictions. We ran the gamut from pretty much bang on to me saying Jalen McDaniels would be a plus-minus darling. You go out on a limb with these bold predictions, and that's just the way it goes. It's all good. You could hold it over my head forever if we have similarly bad takes this time around. Joey Cash, welcome in, pal. How the hell are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm, happy New Year for all those who celebrate in this basketball world, Raptors Nation. I always enjoy doing these, and by always I mean for the second time. I had a lot of fun doing it last year, but yeah, I love me some bold predictions because you don't have to be right. In fact, if you're right too often, then they probably weren't bold enough. So
yeah, if you're right, you're a coward, I think is actually what you're trying to say.
Let's get funky.
All right, let's get funky indeed. Let's start off. We got three bold predictions apiece here we're going to rattle through. We'll see if they are in ascending order of boldness or not. I don't know if I've quite done that with mine. I think all of mine are pretty bold anyway. So let's start. Bold prediction number one for me, Joey Cash. The Immanuel Quickley, Grady Dick, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl lineup will be one of the 10 best high-volume lineups in the NBA by net rating this season. In 200 or more minutes played, this will be the cutoff. There were 37 such lineups last year per NBA.com. I think the Raptors starters will be one of the 10 best among high-volume lineups this season. I think the fit between them on offense is really, really nice. I am baking in a leap for Scotty Barnes. I think Immanuel Quickley as an on- and off-ball agent within this team is going to be super effective. You've got the spacing provided by Quickley as a pull-up guy, as a guy who can scurry around away from the ball. Grady Dick pulling apart defenses like it's a cinnamon roll with all those little delicious bits of sauce, frosting.
Cinnamon?
That's what it is.
Dough? Whatever.
Yeah.
It is.
Whatever it is. It's a really strained analogy. But either way, I just think the fit's really nice. I think Jakob Poeltl kind of tying it all together is really good. And I think the defense will be just good enough. If you look at last year's starters with Gary Trent Jr. in place of Grady Dick, I've cited this all summer long. That lineup as the second most used lineup for the Raptors was a plus 11.8 per 100 possessions on cleaning the glass. I think it was like plus 10.4 on NBA.com, which doesn't filter out garbage time the way cleaning the glass does. Either way, I think the fit's really nice. I think Scotty Barnes is that good, and I think this lineup is going to kick ass. What the bench does, we'll see, but I do think the starters are going to give them a pretty nice baseline. What say you to this audacious prediction of mine?
I love it. I don't know if they're going to be top 10, but I think they're going to be, I think as you had it in the rundown there, a wagon. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be very good. I think it's a very balanced lineup. I think obviously it leans a little more offense right now, but I do think there's a defensive capability there with Yak kind of manning the middle and quickly applying some ball pressure at the point of attack, Barnes taking another step as a defender, RJ being solid enough on that end. I think they're going to be really good when those 5 guys are on the court. And I'm sure over the course of today's show, we can talk about, how the season will go, and maybe we'll end up disagreeing on that. But any negative thoughts anyone has on how this season will go, I don't think will be attributed to how this starting 5 works together. I think it'll be really solid, and I think they're going to win their minutes quite comfortably. And I think at the end of the year, we could be looking at, maybe a top 10 unit among big minute units in the NBA. Like you said, the question will be what they do when these 5 guys aren't on the court at the same time, because obviously they can't be. But I think if you just tune into Raptors games this year at the start of the first and third quarters, I think they're going to look like a very competitive team.
That's all we can ask for, really, after what last year was all about, right? I'm all in on that. And hey, look, KCP has left the Denver Nuggets. There is a perch atop the list of best lineups in basketball to be snatched, not by your Toronto Raptors, but maybe by your Toronto Raptors. Let's get to your first bold prediction here, Joey Cash. What you got for me? Lay it on me.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Sean, before I get into my bold predictions. I've got 2 that are positive, for sure.
Okay.
2 positive, 1 negative-ish, I guess, in a way, if you're looking at the short term. So my question to you is, do you want the negative one out the way first, or do you want to keep the good times rolling here and stay positive and maybe squeeze the negative at the end?
Let's keep the good times rolling. We'll put the negative one at the end. Yeah, well, what you got?
Okay.
Give me a positive one out of the gate.
Immanuel Quickley breaks Fred VanVleet's record for most three-pointers made by a Raptor in a season.
Fred VanVleet. Love it.
Fred
Carry
VanVleet,
on.
2 years ago, sunk 242 three-pointers, which is the current franchise record for threes in a season. If Quickley plays his career average of 72.75 games per season, he would need to make 3.34 threes per game to break the record. Now, I went back and looked at last year. Only 9 guys last season in the NBA averaged that many made threes per game. So essentially what I'm expecting is that Quickley would have to make threes at a top 10-ish rate. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be top 10 by percentage, but his volume of made threes will be top 10. And I actually don't think that's that crazy if you watched the way he played after the trade as a Raptor last season. We know, obviously, he's going to play more than he did in New York or early in his career. He's going to have more of the ball. He's going to have more control of the offense. His career average is 2 made threes per game and 5.5 attempts. With the Raptors, it was 2.8 made threes and 7.1 attempts. I think his first full season as a Raptor, now that he's officially part of things going forward, like I said, more control of the offense than he's ever had in his career. I think the attempts get closer to 10, not saying it hits double digits, but closer to 10. And I think if he continues to shoot the way he has throughout his career and stays as healthy as he has throughout his career, it is very possible for him to make 3.3, 3.4 threes a game, which would help him get to that magical number. If you care about the Raptors made threes in a season record enough, I guess it's a magical number.
It's the most important of numbers, okay?
Yes. So, but yeah, I really do think the formula is there for him to chase a record like this. Especially with, I believe Darko has said before he wants the team shooting more threes. He wants Quickley shooting more threes. The offense, I think, will hum, and he'll be a big part of that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I love it, man. I am fully in on the Immanuel Quickley experience. On yesterday's podcast, we did an over-under on Immanuel Quickley threes made. I set it at 208. I was the only one who took the over among myself, Vivek, and Sahal. I feel really good about getting that point, and I'm glad you are on the right side of history with me, because he's just going to have to bomb a whole lot of them, man. Like, they just need the volume, and he's the most sensible guy, along with Grady Dick, to provide said volume.
Yeah, and also, obviously a lot more pull-up threes, right? Like a guy like Dick is going to get a ton of catch and shoot, and he can create for himself too, but not in the same way someone like Quickley, who will have the ball in his hands so much and is a great pull-up threat. The volume will just be there, and even obviously the usage will go up. The minutes too, like if just last year, when he came mid-season, if you compare the minutes he averaged as a Raptor last year, which was 33.3, to his career average was about 24.3. That's like a 37% increase in his minutes from the rest of his career to becoming a Raptor. I think that's going to continue this year. So Yeah, the minutes are going up, the usage are going up, field goal attempts going up, and I think most of those will be from behind the arc.
Not gonna lie, Cash. Based on our recent conversations over the last 6 months or so, I thought your Quickly prediction would be a little more, let's say, award based. Perhaps one of us
MIP?
has an award based prediction coming up. We will get into that as we continue on our preseason bold predictions here on the show. We'll get to that in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the #1 sports book in North America. Go check them out right now. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's awesome. If you are someone who likes a futures bet, I'm not one who really wagers all that much when I'm watching sports, but when I do, it's usually because I feel good about a hunch on a future. I feel good about the Denver Nuggets not being dead this season. I think they might go do the whole thing because Nikola Jokic remains the best player alive. I might just throw a little scratch down on the Denver Nuggets to win the title, as I did 2 years ago, to great return. If there's another hunch you got, maybe it's, you got to want to throw some money down to the World Series or something like that. All of it's available for you over at FanDuel with their super easy to use website. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com, the #1 sportsbook in North America and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Back at it here with Joey Cash as we continue our preseason Raptors bold, daring, audacious predictions episode. I will get things rolling here with my second bold prediction, Joey Cash. Last year, you may remember, I picked the Raptors to finish #1 in transition frequency, and they, I believe, did. They like wiped the slate with everyone else. They completely ran other teams out of the gym. They didn't do anything else well, but they ran pretty darn well, and that was nice. I bet they do that again. I'm not going to go there this time because it's not bold at all. For me, a similar thing, a sort of frequency-related bold prediction. I think the Toronto Raptors are going to finish #1 in the NBA in at-rim frequency this season. This is a team of rim merchants. They were number 6 last year in at-rim frequency. They were 13th in percentage, but they got to the rim a whole lot. Their entire offense is designed around pulling things apart, like the little cinnamon bun analogy I talked about earlier, and just kind of funneling things toward the rim with cuts, with drives, with pick and roll, with all of it. And I just think that to account for their lack of overall three-point shooting juice, they're going to have to become a team of even more dedicated rim merchants than they were last year. Hell, Ochai Abaji's hitting his shots at the rim again. He's a rim merchant. We know Jakob Poeltl finishes at the rim as well as any big man in the league. We know that Scotty Barnes can get to the rim whenever he wants, especially if there's space around him. RJ Barrett gets to the rim whenever he wants and never misses when he's there. This is just a team that's going to live at the rim, and I think that's going to be really the identity, the fabric of what their offense is all about. Yes, it's the 0.5. Yes, it's the ball movement, the screening, the elbow stuff, but it all is in the interest of getting stuff going to the rim. And with guys like Grady Dick and Immanuel Quickley causing all kinds of havoc above the arc and pulling defenses' attentions away, I think that's just going to lead to a whole lot of buckets right around the rim for the Toronto Raptors. I expect they're going to be very high once again in location effective field goal percentage like they were last year, where they were 6th after the trades or after January 1st, 10th overall. And I think their rim frequency is going to be a thing that buoys that number for them, even if they can't quite get there in terms of getting up to like a 2024 level of 3-point volume or accuracy. So what do you think of that one there, Joey Cash?
Again, I like it. I mean, listen, I wouldn't agree that they'll be #1. I think a lot of their offense
We're trying to be bold here, man.
will come at the rim, and probably will have to. The reason I probably can't see it being that high in terms of a ranking is that, look, we talked about that starting 5 and how good we think it'll work. They can't play together all the time. And, as much as I like Darko's offensive vision and the cuts and the movement, and yeah, that in and of itself will create attempts at the rim, I still don't think there is enough on-ball talent on this team to create enough opportunities for themselves to get to the rim. Like, yeah, Scotty can get to the rim and RJ can get to the rim and Ochai can finish at the rim and Poeltl can finish at the rim. But other than, the BBQ trio, I don't know if there are enough guys on this team that can get themselves to the rim, right? And so... if that starting five was playing together like 95% of the time in 82 games, I'd say, yeah, they've got a shot at this to make your bold prediction, make you look like Nostradamus. But I don't think that'll be the case. I think they'll live at the rim enough, but I don't think there's enough on-ball talent on this team to get there enough to make them number one. But again, as you said, they're bold. And these are supposed to be bold. And no one wants to hear you say, hey, I think the Raptors will be the 7th best team getting to the rim this year. So I'm with you. They'll be number one, even though I just said they won't.
Yeah, you're damn right they'll be number one. I'm glad you came around. No, I also think I'm baking into... I think Immanuel Quickley is going to have his best season getting to the rim, because he's just being emboldened to have the ball more, and he's going to be working a ton of pick and roll with Jakob Poeltl, who we know is really good as a pick and roll partner. I think the laneways to get to the rim for Quickley are going to be there. He finished at the rim really well as a Raptor last season, 70% after the trade. He just didn't get there enough, and I think he's going to. I think the floater is going to come back. Like I think. If that's there, that's going to make it that much easier for him to get those extra 2 steps towards the rim as well. I'm a big believer in that. I also think, Davion Mitchell, not a good ball handler, not a good point guard, but if they get wise and move him off the ball, he's a guy who's always been good at scoring at the rim. So I think they can weaponize that a little bit. And Jamal Shed, the fastest first step this side of the Mississippi, I am fully in on Jamal Shed once he gets some run and inevitably becomes the backup point guard for this team, helping with the rim merchantry of this team as well. And also a guy that I'm going to talk about in my final bold prediction coming up later. That's a tease. What you got for your second bold prediction here, Joey Cash?
My second bold prediction is, and this one is by far the boldest.
Ooh.
Man. Yeah. I'm torn
on
which way to go.
I'm
torn on which way to go, but screw it. If we're staying positive, I'll say the Raptors scrap together a top 10 offense.
Yeah, we love it. Hell yeah. Tell me why.
I think that with Grady Dick becoming a starter and taking a step towards what he will eventually be as a very solid NBA starter, as a big shooting wing, and with Quickley, breaking Fred's record for most threes in a season by a Raptor, RJ being a more consistent shooter, like all these things coming together, I think there will be just enough shooting to go with their great ball movement, their general offensive movement and shot selection to end up top 10. And I think part of that also, when I talk about that movement, the off-ball movement, the general flow of the offense, a lot of that will be the rim frequency that you talked about as well. This is a team that's going to get out in transition and run and make things easier for themselves than the talent at their disposal would otherwise make you think it should be. And so I think I could see it. That, and obviously I don't want to put too much stock in preseason, but they were a top 7 offense during their 5-game preseason sample. They had the number 1 assist ratio in the league. They were number 3 in offensive rebounding. I think that's also going to be a big thing this year. I almost feel like we're talking about the Nick Nurse years again when we're talking about how they have to manufacture offense, right, and winning the possession battle. But I think these things will be a part of it, and they're going to get out and run and get themselves some easy looks. I think the on and off ball movement will get them some easy looks. I think there'll be just enough shooting. They're going to crash the glass to create extra shots for themselves. And I think you add all that up, and there's enough here to be a losing team that still has a top 10 offense.
I fully rate this. I have been bullish on the offense for a while now. I think all the things you mentioned, the sort of ways they're going to be good on the margins, transition. Again, last year they were, like, by most accounts, the best transition team in basketball last year between frequency and efficiency. They were number 2 in efficiency, number 1 in frequency. It's a pretty good combo. They were not, however, a good offensive rebounding team last year, and I think that hurt them a little bit. They were 17th in offensive rebounding percentage per clean the glass. If they are creeping towards top 10, top 5, like they were in the preseason, where it seems like it's a directive, where it's kind of structured too, where it seems like they're kind of having one dude drop back right away and then 2 or 3 guys crashing. So they're kind of having their cake and eating it too, if you will. They're not just crashing recklessly. There's actually some strategic sort of X's and O's behind it. I think, yeah, like they can certainly find themselves enough buckets on the margins to also match the results kind of creeping up and resembling the process, right? I think last year the process was great all season long. You could say a lot about that Raptors team, but damn it, did they run Darko's offense all throughout the season, and they were committed to doing it. And I think they had a bad offense because it was mostly bad players taking a lot of those shots they were creating. They're going to have, hopefully with health. I mean, hopefully the 4 guys who are out tonight are able to get back in the lineup soon to help things along here. But I do think that they're just going to be able to sort of convert on the good looks they create within the system that they run, on top of Scotty Barnes taking a jump as a creator and Immanuel Quickley taking a jump as a creator. I'm with you. I think the offense has a chance to be the real strength of this team. And, if you're sort of envisioning super high-end, fantastical outcomes where they are like a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference, it's because the offense was great and the defense was just sort of bad and not terrible, right? Like it's sort of a run-of-the-mill bad defense coupled with a very good offense could be a recipe for a bit of a surprise. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a great bold prediction. I am all in on that. We're going to come back on the other side, Cash. We're going to get into our final bold predictions. I've got an award pick. That's right, an award pick. Is it a sexy one? Maybe not, but I'm excited about it nonetheless. We'll see what you've got in store as well. I believe your negative bold prediction is on deck as well. So we'll close it off on a sour note. Let's maybe get into some cutting room floor stuff that we almost entertained as bold predictions. We'll get to all that coming up to close the show in just a sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the single best place to buy tickets for the sporting events you want to go to, including the Toronto Raptors game tonight. Let me pull up the app right now. I'm looking at it here. We've got Raptors Cavs tonight at Scotiabank Arena, start of the season. Tickets starting from $51 in the upper bowl. That's pretty sweet. I've got a $50 deal here. You got $138 for the Game Time pick, which is right down low in the lower bowl. There's all kinds of affordable seats, which is a nice thing about watching a kind of not good basketball team. You can get affordable seats, and Game Time helps you do it. Go check them out. They, of course, have all the wonderful features. Seat views. If you've never been to the arena before, you can see exactly what you're going to see from your seat by just clicking on the seats. You've got the lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, which covers your purchase with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, baby. Closing things out here on opening day. I'm jacked up, man. I might have had too much coffee before this. Apologies if that's oozing through the microphone, anybody out there. But I'm very excited for opening night tonight, and you're just going to have to deal with me being geeked up. With that, let's get to our final set of bold predictions here. I mentioned I have an award pick, and look, flirted with like a Scotty Barnes All-NBA. I don't even know if that's that bold. I think if Scotty Barnes is really, really good, like that could totally just happen. If the Raptors are a surprise sort of high 30s win team, that's on the table. I flirted with Immanuel Quickley, most improved. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, Scotty All-NBA, he's got a lot of incentive to chase that.
This is true. The power of money. It's a thing. There's that. I thought about Immanuel Quickley, most improved. It's just, I think most improved is like an impossible award to pick correctly. So I chose to steer clear. How about this one, Joey Cash? Talk about bold. Talk about blind predictions even. The Toronto Raptors are going to have someone make an all-rookie team, and I think that someone is going to be Jacoby Walter. We've not seen Jacoby Walter.
Dude, that basketball. Is bold. This is the boldest thing anyone has said today on this show, and
Hell yeah. All right, let me get into the case. I know we haven't seen him. I know there's this sort of boogeyman thing of rookies who miss training camp, who kind of are behind the curve, and it takes them some time to get rolling. I get it, totally. But Jacoby Walter does some things that this second unit is going to desperately need. He is a guy who will let it fly from deep. He's got a little bit of self-creation to him, and he gets to the rim and he gets to the line. And I think just plopping him into that second unit, having him work off of Scotty Barnes or Immanuel Quickley as the staggered in lead guy, Kelly Olynyk as an agent for spacing as well, I think it's going to be a good environment for Jacoby Walter to get his feet wet. Shooters always play well with Scotty Barnes. That's just a thing. That's just always been the way it goes. His fit with Grady Dick is obvious and was from the jump, even if the results weren't great. I'm not saying Jacoby Walter is going to come out and like drive positive winning basketball, but I do think that once he's plopped into a not super good second unit, that likely we'll see a couple of those guys moved out by the time the deadline comes around. There's going to be all kinds of room for Jacoby Walter to do his three-point bombing and rim merchantry stuff. And I do think there is a world in which Jacoby Walter makes a second-team All-NBA just because he's got the stats, baby. Is it even that bold? Is it just going to happen? Yeah, it's bold. But what do you think? Yeah,
bold as
well, what
hell.
do you think about this one? Am I totally out to lunch here? Is this my new Jalen McDaniels and Grady Dick will be the best plus-minus duo on the Toronto Raptors
Yeah.
prediction?
I think this is the closest thing to that 2023 prediction that we've had so far today. I like it, but I can't see it. To be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Jamal Shed finds himself on an all-rookie team. When they first made that move on draft day and everything that came with it, I at the time said, I think Jamal Shed's already better than Davion Mitchell. And I'm not even that down on Davion Mitchell, but I think Shed will be
Preseason kind of bore that out too, I'd say.
Yeah, I think he'll be much more in the rotation by the time the season's over. And then just more on awards talk, I was going to say, I think the Raptors have 3 players that you could tell me end up seriously in the MIP conversation between Barnes, Quickley, and Barrett. You could tell me any of those 3 guys end up like on the final ballot, like the top 3 in voting for that award at the end of the season, and I would not be surprised.
I would even say like a 4th guy, Grady Dick. He was really bad as a rookie. If he's like a competent starter, that puts him in the sort of long list conversation on its own. So yeah, Jacoby Walter making second team all NBA, all rookie. That would be bold. Jacoby Walter, all NBA player year 1 after missing training camp. I will say, I think Jamal Shed's good. Like, I do think there's just a chance, just because of math, that one of these Raptors guys makes a second team all rookie. It's not like the most stacked rookie class of all time. Some guys have looked good, sure, but there's no like guaranteed, oh, that guy's going to win rookie of the year. These are like some real heavies who are going to take all of the first team spots or anything like that. So it's kind of a weird year. And I do just think, what are there, like 40 to 50 rookies who will play meaningful minutes this year? Raptors got 3 of them. Math suggests like, yeah, they'll probably get one of those guys sneaking on. They've had it happen before. Terrence Davis made one, obviously, back in the day. It's not crazy. Stranger things have happened than a 19th overall pick finding his way onto a second team all NBA. Or I did it again. All rookie. Damn it.
You're really trying to speak it into existence, huh?
I am. Yeah. I'm just in on the Walter experience, I guess. Let's get to your final bold prediction. We've teased it. You're sending us out on a sour note here. What you got?
It doesn't have to be sour, but my final bold prediction that I think will tee up this season pretty well is that the Toronto Raptors end up with a top 5 pick.
Ooh.
Obviously, the negative connotation there is that they would have to be bad enough. Well, not necessarily. I mean, they could just get lucky in the lottery, but for the most part, the insinuation here is that they will be bad enough to get that top 5 pick. So let me kind of explain my reasoning.
Okay.
The schedule to start off. The Raptors, shout out to Keeks, our girl Keeks, who tweeted right when the schedule was released that if you just go by last year's records of the teams on the schedule, the Raptors have the toughest strength of schedule in the NBA before the break for the NBA Cup semis and final there in mid-December. Okay, if you look at their 25 games leading up to that point, and you just kind of see them going the way they should, where like they beat the few teams that they should, they lose to the teams they should, and obviously in between there's some surprise here or there. I think you're realistically looking at like a 9-16 team going into the new year. I think you could be looking at a team that's like 10-20, 11-19, something like that. I know the schedule softens like crazy at the end of the season, and the bottom of the East is definitely bad enough that it can keep them in a very depressing play-in race, even if their record is terrible. But I just think if you're reading the tea leaves, Masai, pretty much for the first time in his tenure here, from the beginning of a season, saying this is a rebuilding team and a rebuilding year. Jakob Poeltl, obviously not breaking any news when he said they know they won't be competing for a title, but still, words matter sometimes, and that self-awareness is actually pretty rare. Like, we see bad teams all the time say the BS at the beginning of the year, but we're trying to win a champion or like make the playoffs. I think there is a level of self-awareness here of where they are. I think Masai and Scotty both talked about Scotty understanding the need for patience and that there will be some frustrations. This is a team that is not outwardly trying to lose, because under Masai, I don't think they will. Like, I think they'll always at least start a year wanting to compete and see what they have. But I think this is a team that maybe more so than any other year, other than Masai's first, when things obviously ended up going very well, this is the most open they've been to the idea that this could be a true development and bridge year before the return to relevance truly begins next year. And with all that said, and all of that messaging kind of already pushed out there where they're easing it onto fans from the beginning, I think that coupled with just how tough their schedule is to start the season, after they've already kind of broken all that to the fan base, if they're 10 games under 500 a couple months into the season or worse, just because of how tough the schedule is, I think it'll be an easier sell with how loaded this upcoming draft class is, where, it's not this like, hey, we're setting out from the beginning to be really awful the way the Wizards and the Nets are this year, but it's a like, hey, we've already told you this is a rebuilding season. Our 4 best players are 25 and under. Our best player's 23 years old and just signed to a long-term deal. We're already 10 to 15 games under 500. The best thing to do here. And I think people will understand it at that point. And I think the negative from, a lot of losses by the end of the year will be the bold prediction. They get a top 5 pick in a loaded class that potentially has 5 franchise changers. Obviously headlined by Cooper Flagg, but also Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper and VJ Edgecombe and the Frenchman Nola Traore. I think this will be a positive by the end, but I think there will be some painful moments in between now and then. And again, I think it's obviously partly that they're not that great right now, but a lot of it does have to do with the schedule not doing them any favors, or if you look on the other side of it, maybe doing them favors in the long run, because it might put them in a position where it's a much easier thing to do than if, say, they got off to some surprising 25-20 start and you're like, oh, they're playing for a top 6 seed. I don't think the schedule will even allow them to think like that.
That's totally fair. I do think that's like one of the outcomes for this season, certainly, is they pull the shoot and they're in that top 5 range and they end up there. I don't think I agree that it's going to happen just because, I believe in the power of a Scotty Barnes leap, and I think it's coming. And when you have a dude who's that good, who, again, we don't know exactly how good that leap is going to make him this year, but he's going to be the best player of the bottom 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. And I think that matters for this specific conversation. I also think some of the teams out West are being underrated about how bad they're going to be just because someone's got to lose in the Western Conference. The Blazers are going to be awful. I don't understand how people think the Jazz are not going to be awful. They're going to be terrible, and they are eager to be terrible.
Yes.
I think the Spurs are probably going to lose a whole crap load of games just because, again, someone's got to lose, and they have one competent, healthy NBA player right now, and Chris Paul, who's old and more coached than anything at this point. I think there is, the Clippers, that could be a total train wreck of a season as well, right? And so I just think the bottom of the league is so bad that even with the tough schedule out of the gate, which, hey, strength of schedule, you can throw out the numbers all you want. Friday against the Sixers is an example of why I don't always take strength of schedule at face value, because guys get hurt. Teams have bad runs of form. You hit them at the right time, it changes the way the schedule looks, and it's always the sort of moving target of how strong is the schedule actually. The Denver Nuggets, they get early. The Nuggets are kind of a weird team adapting to a life without KCP and kind of incorporating some young guys. Maybe they're not at full steam when they play them twice in the first couple weeks of the season. I just think this team, I think they're going to be kind of tryhards from what we saw in the preseason. That's good for wins. If we agree they're going to be a good offensive team and that the starters are going to be really good, I think there's just going to maybe be too high of a baseline for them to be truly, truly terrible. That said, I'm a big believer in lottery karma. And so if the Raptors are the 10th worst team in the league by record or the 9th worst team in the league by record, but they've kind of given it the college try all season long and maybe use that cream puff final closing schedule to add to their win total instead of not, I think the lottery gods will bless them like they did the Houston Rockets last season with a jump into the top 4, and we'll all be very, very happy. It's a have your cake and eat it too moment, baby. Lottery karma. It's a thing.
I know you're gonna get out of here, but I'll just say one thing. So let's say it like this. Let's put a positive spin on this somewhat negative prediction and say, here is the best case scenario in a way. Mm-hmm. The tryhard Raptors in a very weak bottom of the East, in which I agree that they have the best player from that 6-team group, bring some excitement to the city, to the fan base. I think regardless of what the record is, I actually do think this will be a fun and exciting young team to watch.
That's all I'm asking for.
And that unlike last year is a team that knows the direction it's going. They know where they are in their cycle of competitiveness, whatever you want to call it. I think it'll be fun.
You're pulling right from my newsletter post that's going out later today.
Love it. I saw your notes in the background and plagiarized them. But what I was going to say, the best case scenario to me is they are that fun, young, exciting team that tries hard, that in a very terrible bottom half of the East ends up playing postseason basketball. They're in the play-in. They fall short in the play-in. They don't make the playoffs, still end up in the lottery. The lottery gods smile upon them. They end up with a top 4 pick because they move up. So my bold prediction comes true. Your vision for a maybe more competitive team than people assume also comes true. And we have our cake and eat it too. And we're 6 or 7 months from now discussing which of these 5 franchise changers the Raptors are going to add to the mix with Scotty Barnes after a season that actually still went surprisingly well anyway. Now that's a goddamn bold or positive prediction or whatever you want to call it. I think that's a good way to end it.
We have to agree that in 6 months' time, when we do our episode where we take up our bold predictions, that if we are in fact this correct, we eat cake on the podcast. People will love it. They'll go crazy. You can even choose the cake. I don't know. You want some like Nutella ass cake or some weird like that? We can do that. It's perfectly fine.
You had to end on some Nutella slander, eh?
I've come around on Nutella being neutral to fine. I just don't ever eat it, but I'm not offended by it. So there's that. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Cash. This was a blast.
Always fun,
you,
man.
the listeners. Yeah, this is like one of my favorite shows of the year. It's a good week. These preseason shows, we really nail it. It's all downhill from here, baby. So we will leave it there. Anything you want to promote for the good people, Cash?
Just the usual. You can find my work at The Score. Download The Score app. Make sure you're reading all our NBA content. That's where you can find my feature writing and analysis. And please subscribe to The Score on YouTube. That's where you can find my weekly Unfiltered series, which runs Fridays, and also my studio show that runs every Tuesday, The Unfiltered Show. Sean, we will definitely get you in there sometime this season to talk Raptors. Love to have you come by the studio.
Anytime, man. I'm at games this year. I'm in town. I'm not at some outpost at the end of Lake Ontario anymore, baby. I'm back in civilization. So yeah, would love to do that at some point for sure. Thank you to the listeners for kicking around, hanging out as we end an interminable off season today. We'll be back again tomorrow to talk about the opener against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Very much looking forward to that. S. Barrahenny's coming along on Friday. We're going to talk about, positivity, optimism, reasons to feel good about this squad. Got the newsletter post coming later today with some similar notes in there as well. Should be a fun season, even if it's a losing season. And that is really all we can ask for over here after last year was, the worst season I've ever covered. Yeah, that includes Tampa, where, look, I was checked out during Tampa anyway. We're going to leave it there. We will talk to you again on Thursday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Enjoy the opener. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Oh, brick.